everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking Up with Burnout podcast. And I am so excited for my friend Erin. I just cannot wait for you to meet her because one, we just hit it off right away, but also she is a wealth of knowledge and just her experience and what she's doing in the maternal mental health space is amazing. So you guys, welcome my friend Erin. Hey Erin.
Tiffany, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Just excited to chat about all the
Yeah.
things.
Yes, me
Yeah.
too. So tell the listeners who you are, where you come from, and what are you doing? What are you doing in the world right now?
What am I doing in the world? So, my name's Erin Trier. I'm a mom of four. I live right now in Park City, Utah, but I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from the Chicago area, grew up in the Midwest, kind of lived there most of my life, went to college in Indiana, met my husband there, and then again, kind of lived the Midwest life for most of both of our lives. And then, fast forward to having a family and kind of opportunities with my husband's job specifically, it led us out west. So we've been in Utah now for almost 10 years. We've had two kiddos out here. We've expanded our family. And during that time of me stepping into motherhood, I learned a lot about myself, right? I learned a lot about just how I really needed to reprioritize my own needs and reprioritize how to actually take care of myself. And it was a
Yeah.
very eye-opening journey. And I know, Tiffany, you and I kind of talked about this before we hit record
Yeah.
today, but one of the things that was a really big topic for me that felt like it was lacking on support and lacking on communication was this idea of maternal mental health. And I know for me, with each one of my pregnancies, with each postpartum journey, with all of my kids, and the journey of building our family, I felt different every single time. And there were
Yeah.
certain seasons where my mental health specifically felt like a really big challenge. And I felt very ill-equipped, not educated enough, was not prepared enough, really didn't have a good understanding of what was going to potentially happen, not only to my body, but more so to my brain. And that really
Yeah.
woke me up to a lot of the different topics inside of women's health specifically that we just aren't educated about enough. Everything from, being a young adult, starting your cycle when you're a young girl, all the way through to postpartum and, getting into midlife. I'm now in this midlife season where it's like a whole nother ball of wax, right? Like a whole nother transition, a whole nother thing to learn. And, again, like I said, I just really have been opened up to this idea of our bodies and brains evolve so much in our lives as women. And there's so much we really need to learn and talk about related to our experiences, but also continue to get educated around how do we evolve? How does our inside out wellness shift? And what do we need to do proactively to make sure we're learning what we need, expressing our needs, talking about those things, et cetera. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of where I've been and where I am now.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love it because I'm often having conversations with a lot of my clients about
Yeah.
this too, about hormone shifts and cycle syncing. And right now the buzzword I feel like in women's health is perimenopause and everything's perimenopause right now. And so which I love that because it's a lot of education is being pushed out. But also, there's always the tendency where there can be misinformation when there's
Yes.
something such a big topic. So I'd love to know from your experience and what you see in your clients, what are some misinformation that you're kind of seeing and that are combating or having to help reshape or reframe for your clients?
That's such a great question. And, in my own journey, but I also see this a lot with the women I speak to, connect with, and my clients, is just this concept of we're supposed to be able to figure out what we need based on like blanket programs and one size fits all advice. And I see women take what they're consuming all around us and somehow try to apply it to their life. And then when it doesn't fit or it doesn't work, it's this internalized process. And it's all of these mental soundtracks around why I'm broken, why I can't figure it out, why I'm not enough, or all of these different things. And for me, it's been heartbreaking to continue to see that because what I want women to know more than anything is truly how bio individual you are. Like what you
Yes.
need from every aspect of your life and your health is highly unique to you and it needs to be personalized to you. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions slash things that we haven't been educated enough around and gets really lost in translation in the noise because again, so much is out there. To your point, we are bombarded every day with all the should do's or you need this or buy this or try that or whatever it is, right? And my goal is to really help women understand you really don't need any of those things. What you need to do is slow down enough and be walked along with somebody else, right? This process of figuring out what is it that actually helps you as an individual, right? And
Yes.
that's probably the biggest thing that I continue to see more and more. And I want women to know that the noise is very real. And the more you can start to slow down and get into this concept of you are uniquely you, and then figuring out what you need from there is really the best practice over time.
Yeah, I love that. I was just in a group chat with a bunch of cousins, female family members, and we were talking about different things. And I brought that up. I was like, well, this is great. However, we're so individualized. Like, I don't want any of us to feel like shame if we try it or suggest it that it's not going to work
Yeah.
because our bodies are so different.
Yeah.
And even though, we can have similarities when it comes to like family and genetics and stuff like that, there's still your DNA and your genetics is specifically you.
Yeah.
And it
Un-
just may not work. It may
Yeah.
not all work the same.
And at the same time, like it may not bring you joy, right? It may
Right.
not be something that feels aligned for you. And I
Yeah.
think again, especially in the health space, no matter what kind of topic we're talking about, like this can also be a big point of misinformation or women starting to beat themselves up in some way. It's like you feel like you have to do something because somebody told you that's what you need in order to be healthy, successful, whatever it is, insert blank. But then when you do it and it doesn't feel aligned or it doesn't actually bring you joy, then to your point, like you get into those spirals of feeling all kinds of feelings when it doesn't need to be that way and it shouldn't be that way. Like that's not really giving yourself the care and love that you wholeheartedly deserve, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what leads to burnout, especially with health of like trying to figure it out and constantly advocating and asking questions, which all of that is good, but it can be tiring
Yeah.
when you come against the shoulds and you need to buy this and do that. And it's part of my own story is like dealing with my own health and actually just posted on social media the other day. I'm like, I'm at the doctor again and it's tiring because, like, I know I need it to get more information, but also at the same time, it's like I'm having to advocate and ask the questions and
Yeah.
prepare the questions and do research because not every health provider gets it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a whole like that's like a whole nother topic.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how do we actually continue to find the resources and the dedicated places where we can feel like we're supported, seen, heard, and understood, right? And that's a whole nother part of the conversation inside of so many facets of health, but especially women's health, right? Like it's just so much of the research, so much of the education, so much of the scope of practice and knowledge from practitioner to practitioner is slowly catching up, but we have a
Yep.
lot more work to do, like a lot more work to do for every age and stage. And so that's again one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the work I do because I feel so grateful to be able to be a voice that says, here are the things that I want to encourage you to look through or think through or ask more about. Here are the things that I want you to get a little bit more educated around related to what actually serves your body and your brain best. And I'm learning so much every single day, and that's part of the journey.
Yeah, yeah, it's like learning something new and
Yeah,
being able to just tweak and
yeah,
implement that and do what you can within your own capacity.
yeah,
Um, because there is so much. There's so much that you can hear and listen and do, and I think having like that's why I have people like you on the podcast because I want people to know there's people and practitioners and coaches that are in spaces so that are saying what we're saying is like
yeah,
you are an individual. Here's some things to consider. I even asked my health practitioner recently, Jetta. I was like, what questions do I need to ask my doctor? And what blood work do I actually need to get done?
yeah,
So she can look at it too, and we have a bigger picture of what's going on. And
yeah.
just knowing you have somebody like that in your corner can change everything. Like just
Yes.
feeling that support. I think about community support, and as women, we're communal. Our
Yeah.
culture is very individualized, but we are very communal as human beings, as women, and we need that support. Without it,
Yeah.
again, that leads to that stress and to that burnout, the isolation. Am I wrong? What am I doing? I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
So how does that play out? I'd love to hear, like, how does that play out, community plays out in your life and in the work that you do?
It's such a great question too. And community I have found has been like one of the most pivotal things, especially in motherhood, right? Especially in motherhood, but really like again, any journey you're on, whatever your path looks like, whatever, lights you up or feels, something that you're passionate about, whatever, like having people around you that are like-minded, that you can brainstorm with, that you can ask questions to, that can lift you up, that can help you like continue to recalibrate on the days that are hard. Like that is truly one of the most important things inside of the larger picture of wellness. And so one of the concepts that I teach inside of my coaching program is something called the Empower Method. And it's essentially a roadmap where I take women through like a sequence of things where we're doing the right things at the right time in the right order to make sure you're really building a robust foundation of all of the health things, right?
Mhm.
So relational health is a big part of that. We talk
Yeah.
so much about not only how are we moving our bodies and how are we fueling for energy with food and how are we stress managing and sleeping well and all of the foundational things there, but relational health is a huge piece. Like we have to be connected to other people. We have to be building community in a like-minded way. We have to have these strategic resources in our corner. So to your point, Tiffany, we feel like we have people to lean on. We have
Yeah.
people to actually relate to the journey that we're on. And so for me, like I've seen that be a really pivotal thing for my clients is constantly talking about and evaluating, I know you're working in some capacity. I know you're taking care of all the people in some capacity. I know you're pouring into your community, you're volunteering, you're giving because so many of us are givers in so many different ways. And the other side of the coin in the conversation always has to be, well, but what are you also giving to yourself? And how much have you dedicated as far as time goes to making sure you're getting out of some of the typical normal type of daily activities and getting into things that are bringing you joy and connecting you with other people and like having fun, like having fun and prioritizing those things outside of the daily grind that we can all get into,
Yes,
so
I love that
that
so much.
concept of holistic wellness and continuing to
Yes.
talk about
Mhm.
relational health and community support and how that matters too for how we feel from the inside out. It's a huge piece that I want to make sure women really understand because it's a huge part of the puzzle.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you said fun because when I started coaching and branching into the coaching world, my first program was called the Fun Fulfilled Life, and it was
I love it.
for women to
Yeah.
have fun again. We often can get bogged down with all the responsibilities, especially because tend to be givers, we tend to be helpers or people that want to like naturally give.
Yeah.
But like, where's the fun? Like, are
Exactly.
you having fun giving? Maybe, maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yep.
But like what just like lights you up and brings joy, like you said, with no I always tell people like there's no gain. It's
Yeah.
just fun.
Yep.
There's no like checking the box of it. There's no I finished a project. It's
Yeah.
just like it's fun to be fun. What is
Yeah.
that like?
Exactly right. And I think it's harder for women to kind of do that. I know for me, I've had to kind of check myself in different seasons, depending on
Me
what the
too.
demands are, depend on what's happening with our family, whatever, where I
Yeah.
feel very imbalanced there. And it's
Yeah.
very like it's easily identifiable once you start to understand how important that is. You start to really feel this level of imbalance and you can recognize like okay, I know that I haven't prioritized this. I know that I've literally been in work mode or family mode or whatever for too long and I haven't been pouring into this bucket of just doing something carefree, like to use like you said, without an agenda, without this idea
Yeah.
of I have to be productive, I have to check a box, and
Yeah.
instead it's just I'm choosing this because it fills my cup and I really want to
Yeah.
do it and I need to do it. And it's just
Yeah.
again one of those important reminders we need as women.
Yeah, yeah, and I hear a lot of people saying, "Well, that's silly," or because 'cause I'll, like, challenge clients or challenge people in conversations a little bit of like, what is fun? Like, do something fun that feels silly.
Yeah.
And like, I can hear almost like the shame of
Yeah.
like, well, that's not responsible or that's not da da
Yeah.
da. And I'm like, it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
like we give kids so much permission to
Yeah.
be that way. It's like we need the same permission to be that way as adults.
Yeah, we really do. And, I think we can't talk about that enough because, to your point, we get bogged down. There's so much responsibility. There's so much that we need to do, have to do, whatever it might be. But having that level of just carefree joy and like wholehearted childlike happiness, that's a
Yeah.
huge piece to
Yeah.
health. Like we have to have that as a part of what we're doing.
Yeah. So I'd love to like ask you, what is the childlike fun thing that you're kind of incorporating in your life right now?
Ooh, that's a great question. So, I mean, we like to spend a lot of time outdoors, right? So,
We do too.
honestly, for us, it's like just going and exploring outside. We go on hikes as
Yeah.
a family, or my husband and I will go on a hike, or I'll just go out on my own. Like, even
Hmm.
just like no technology, no headphones, no nothing, like
Yeah.
silent hiking, walking. For me, that just feels like this very grounding, intentional practice that
Yeah.
fills my cup in a very intentional way. That feels very fun to me, right? So like that's a big basic one that we do.
Yeah.
I love like adult coloring books. I
Hmm.
also love journaling, right? Like things like that I will get into here and there. Like I think that anything that I can do to kind of get out of my brain and just
Hmm.
into some sort of grounding practice. Like that is what I try to do more and more and more. And I've noticed the more I'm self-aware, or the more self-awareness I build, I should say, the more I know like, okay, this has to be something I lean into every now and then, at least, if not weekly or whatever. Because if I don't, then I just start to get into this place where I get more and more into survival and more into
Yes.
that place of feeling like, okay, I'm going too fast, I'm doing too much, I'm on the road to potentially burning out. So I need to figure out what are the ways I can get a little bit more grounded? Like what are the ways I can get out of my head? And so those are just some simple things. And then obviously like our family, we're like Disney nuts, like we're totally Disney nuts. Like that is a
That's
fun thing
awesome.
that we do. Obviously not all the
Yes.
it's like a fun carefree thing we do all the time. And like, we love to just spend time together whenever we can as a family. And like again, it doesn't need to be this huge calculated thing, this big
Yes.
expensive
Right.
thing. It can be
Hmm.
so basic, simple as just getting out of your normal pattern and figuring out what can I do to slow down enough to just feel a level of happiness that actually feels intentional and that I'm present with. I think that's when I say childlike, that's what
Hmm.
I mean, right? Like there's no overanalyzing, there's no agenda. It's just this like really intentional presence and like
Yeah.
sitting with it and realizing, yeah, this makes me feel really good. Or yeah, this puts a smile on my face and makes me feel really happy, right? And so
Yeah.
those are the
Yeah.
kinds of things that come up for me.
I love it. I love it. We are Disney people too. My husband
Love it.
just said the other day, he was like, because we haven't been in a while and we
Ah,
have friends that live nearby. And he's like, should we plan a trip?
yeah, I
And I was
love
like,
it.
yes,
I love
I
it.
would
That's
love
awesome.
that.
So good.
Yeah, because so much fun there too. And I love what you said because I think when we get into survival mode or when we get into stress mode, we end up like fixating on things to do.
Yep.
Well, if I just check it off my list or if I just do this next thing and then what happens is we get in the cycle of we keep going
Yep.
and we're going and we have to pattern interrupt
Yep.
that pattern. And by doing these things that we're talking about that are fun, that are slow, that allow you to ground yourself back into your body, will help you create space to release. Because
Yes.
fun is a release, laughter is a release.
Yep.
It helps you kind of recalibrate and get out of that survival mode and come back down to where you feel a place of contentment.
Yeah, 100%. And Tiffany, one of the things that I talk to my clients a lot about is this idea of starting to figure out how to do that in relation to your actual energy, right? Like as women, we have a different energy. Like our physiology is built different. We have
Mhm.
cyclical energy because of how we are created, right? And when you get into these moments of starting to realize, like, okay, how do I get into that more intentional space? How do I slow down enough? Another part of it is also starting to figure out how do I tune into where my energy is at? right? Instead of just, to
Mhm.
your point, continuing on the cycle, powering through, just keep going and not stopping enough to figure out, okay, like, what do I actually need here? And what's going to actually fill my cup? Because that's a big part of the overall discussion that I like women to understand is, so many of us at some point have probably felt really exhausted, really
Yep.
tired, like over it, but we still power through because that's what we've
Yep.
been conditioned to do or taught to do,
Excuse me.
educated to do, right?
Yep.
And what we need to do instead is figure out, but where's my energy actually at, right? How do I start to slowly capitalize on that and figure out, when do I have more energy? When do I have less energy? When do I need to honor when I have less energy so I can rest? When do I have more energy so I can actually implement those fun things, right? Like, it's very real for all of us. And the more you learn that, the more you can start to kind of figure out some of the things we're talking about and make it feel a little bit more aligned rather than this constant like internal battle or this idea that you just have to keep powering through, because at the end of the day that's not the way, especially for us as women because of our cyclical nature.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just talking to somebody about this in a like green, yellow, red zone of your
Yeah.
capacity, and
Yeah.
knowing that it not just not that a whole day is green
Yeah.
or a whole day is yellow. It may be that there are times of the day that are green, and there
Yeah.
are times of the day that are yellow, and there are times of the day that are red.
Yeah.
And to become aware of that and saying,
Yes.
okay, what can I do when I'm in the green zone? What can I stop doing or pausing when in the red zone? And then what kind of like the yellow, I'm like experiment with the yellow.
Yeah.
You might not be able to do the green things, but you can do some things that are a little bit less um I think about like responding to emails would be
Yeah.
my yellow zone. It's
Yeah.
like I can do that. It doesn't take too much energy. And so being able to like navigate just everyday life in
Yeah.
that way of seeing that, it is a huge, I think, game changer for us as women because, like you said, because of our cyclical nature, our culture puts us in like the men's hormone
Yep.
mode. They like
Yep.
spike once and then they're fine the
Yep.
rest of the time. Where for
Yep.
us, we're like every week we're different, and so
Yes.
we need to honor that instead of ignoring that.
We do need to honor that, and that's personally been a big part of my overall burnout story,
Yeah.
because
Mm.
of, I didn't really have a good grip on this or education around this concept until the last like 5 to 6 years. And
Yeah.
before that, especially like in the beginning of my motherhood journey, like when we had really little kids, when I was still trying to figure out how to work, I had no idea that this was actually a really powerful thing for women to understand. And so I literally would just show up, to your point, following the circadian rhythm clock, grinding all the time, had no idea how to tune into more of my body and my energy and my brain. And I led myself to a really significant place of burnout because I just didn't have the awareness. I didn't have the education. And
Mhm.
like I said, once you start to kind of tune into this and understand how real it is, it's one of the most empowering things because you get out of that place of feeling like you're not enough, you can't keep up, like you have to do XYZ in this certain time frame or whatever. And that's just not reality. That's not the truth behind how we really truly should be functioning. Like, we should be honoring what our bodies and our brains are telling us. And the more you can understand that, the older you become, the more you're going to feel a little bit more balanced, a little bit more energized, a little bit more aligned with what actually serves you, your health, and most importantly, your longevity best. And that's really one of the things I want women to know too is this is how we actually promote the best longevity health practice, by learning really specifically what feels good in our bodies and how we continue to align our effort with our energy.
Yeah, no, I love that, and that's how you combat burnout and
Yep.
compassion fatigue. That's like what I talk about all the time is being able to all the things that really we've talked about, putting boundaries, looking at capacity, understanding what's happening in your brain and your body. It is so empowering
Yep.
because it's like, oh, well, I never thought about it that way before. It's like, oh, like I'm not quote crazy for
Yeah.
feeling this way. I was just talking to some friends and we were talking about how probably in the I was trying to think, I was watching a TV show and they like hospitalized this woman and really it was like an emotional breakdown
Okay.
and they were hospitalizing her and I'm like, how often during that time, I can't remember exactly, maybe like the 60s. It could be even further back, but they were hospitalizing women because there were hormonal shifts
Yep.
that were causing mental health issues, and
Yep.
they just called them crazy
Yeah. Yeah.
and put them in a mental institution.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how wild that is. And now coming to now of where we're like, here's the education, here's the research, here's what's actually happening in the body
Yeah.
and in the brain and how we can support that. And I'm like, it's just wild for me to see that and talk about like just how not necessarily behind, but like behind our culture is on the research when it comes to women's health. And I
Yeah.
feel like we've only touched the surface
Yeah. We really
of
have.
what's coming out right now.
Yeah, we really have. And I love that you touched on that hormonal piece because that is a huge driver inside of how we feel every single day. And,
Yeah.
getting educated about hormonal fluctuations, how those shift in different seasons of our lives, what
Yeah.
that means from an energy standpoint, a mood standpoint, and so much more,
Mhm.
again, is incredible knowledge to have. And I know we kind of started with talking about my maternal mental health journey, but for me, that was the information that was missing. To your point,
Yeah.
I felt so depleted, so out of my body, really low lows. Like my body was changing, but my brain felt harder to manage. Like I had a really hard time
Mhm.
like putting words together, staying as organized as I once was. And I just felt so unglued, but I didn't have
Yeah.
reference to why. I didn't
Right.
have anybody really guiding me and helping me understand this is part of the evolution of your physiology and there's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. However, we need to figure out what do we do to intentionally support this? And I just didn't have that education. And in a lot of the conversations I have with women, this is a very common thing. They start to feel these shifts at different points in their life and they start to feel like they're crazy, kind of like you just said.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's not reality. The reality is
No.
we start to physiologically change in a very significant way hormonally in different stages of our life, especially as you move into the midlife season, perimenopause like we've talked about, especially when you get into like beforehand pregnancy, postpartum potentially, there's a reason why we have these most profound physiological changes and it's because
Right.
of how our bodies were created and what's actually happening underneath the surface. And so it's the education piece and normalizing the experience is what we need to continue to do as a community of women, right? Because women deserve to have this level of education so you don't feel so out of body, right? And you don't start
Right.
to internalize what you're experiencing and feeling like for some reason you're the only one or that you're excessively broken, which is never the case and not the case at all.
Yes, exactly. It's just putting tools in your hand and saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
like this is actually normal what you're
Yep.
feeling. This isn't actually can be actually a superpower in your life when you get to understand it and know it,
Yep.
and it releases a lot of the shame."
It releases a lot of the shame, and it's also an opportunity for you to learn, like, there's so much you can do, and that's
Yes.
really the
Yeah.
thing that continues to also be missed or that needs to continue to come, like, online, so to speak, a little bit more. The research needs to catch up is helping women understand once you start to feel differently in your body and your brain, what can you do from a lifestyle standpoint, from a stress management standpoint,
Yeah.
from, a potential bio-individual health plan standpoint, right? Like one of the things I've also learned on the topic of burnout is how much more stress sensitive we become when we're in these major physiological changes. And once you have that knowledge, you can start to understand, okay, boundaries are really important, especially right
Yeah.
now, making sure that I have strategic routines in place. So I'm, you know, easing into the day and have a good morning routine, setting myself
Yeah.
up for sleep success at the end of the day by having a wind down routine,
Yeah.
understanding maybe my unique deficiencies and imbalances and having strategic supplemental supports in place or whatever it is. All of that is totally possible and can
Yeah.
absolutely change how you feel. And so that's the other side of the coin to this conversation is helping
Mhm.
women
Yeah.
understand you don't have to just sit and feeling terrible or feeling like you have no energy or feeling like you're just supposed to survive versus thrive any kind of change you're experiencing. And that's another part of the power of having conversations like this, like
Yeah.
we're normalizing that this is a real thing for women. And the more we talk about our experiences, the better.
Yes, yes, I love that too. And I, as you were talking, I was thinking about it doesn't have to be a whole lifestyle overhaul.
Right.
You can take it one moment, one tool, one thing, one part of your life
Yep.
at a time.
Yep.
Because an overhaul can feel overwhelming when you're burnt out. You're like, oh my gosh, I got to learn about my hormones and I got to learn about stress and da, 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 all this stuff. And it's like, okay, just take one piece and just start doing that. Like if,
Yep.
say, for example, we all know movement is something that helps our brain and our body, whatever movement looks like for you, whether that's stretching or hiking or walking or
Yep.
biking, swimming, whatever movement you do, just start moving a little bit
Yep.
more
Yep.
and see what happens and build upon that. And then once that is good, that area is good, it's like, okay, maybe I'll look at my hormone health and
Yep.
research what I can do for that. Or
Yep.
then I'll call Erin because I know she has all this information. Or maybe I'll talk to Tiffany because
Yep.
she is an expert in burnout. And so
Yep.
it's like being able to just start small
Yes.
and start with support.
Yes, that's such a good reminder because to your point, that's one of the things that can sometimes keep us stuck is this idea of,
Yes.
I know I don't feel good. I know that I'm like
Right.
on the road to burnout and I'm so stressed
Mhm.
out. But how do
Yeah.
I even start? Where do I even start? Like the idea of even trying to start can feel very overwhelming. And I come across
Yeah.
this a lot with my clients,
Yeah.
especially for the women who have really been functioning in survival for a long time and are very disconnected from what they actually need, what their body is telling them, what their brain is feeling like. So it can feel very overwhelming to even figure out how do I even start? And so your reminder on choosing one small thing is so profound. Like something I want to make sure everybody hears because that
Yeah.
is how sustainable change is created. You choose
Yeah.
small things and you build on them over time. The idea
Yeah.
of trying to overhaul everything at once and go all the way in at one time
Yeah.
is a mindset I really work against as a coach because that's not
Yeah.
how you create sustainable change. That's not
No.
how anything you're trying to do is actually manageable in your life. Trying to actually take care of yourself and get out of survival cycles, get out of burnout means you have to make it manageable. Like you have to
Yeah.
be able to create something that really starts to fit into your life so you can slowly start to shift into a new kind of energy or focus or whatever it is. And so I love that you
Yeah.
said that, Tiffany. It's so good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love to call those micro moments of wellness because
Yep.
it's true. Like a 30-second deep breath, a 3-minute walk, something, a cup of water, we can start there and it busts the overwhelm. Because again, I think we get in this mindset like we got to do all these different things. I get so overwhelmed to your point of like, how do I start?
Yeah.
Because I'm already overwhelmed. So how do I even start anything?
Yes.
Um, so it's making sure that we start small.
Yep. Starting
So
small. It's
Awesome.
key.
Yeah, it is. Okay, awesome. Erin, I feel like I could talk to you forever. We could talk about so many different things,
I
but
know,
um I
Tiffany.
I know. So, I would love for you to share like how can people if they want to connect with you or learn more information about what you're doing in your coaching, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, awesome. So the two best places to connect with me are either my website, which is erintrier.com, or I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram at erinKtrier.com. And then I also have a podcast that Tiffany's going to be on, which I'm super excited about. It's called Empowered in Health. I have a lot of different experts that I brought on there that share incredible knowledge. I also share a lot about my personal story and just the things that I've learned serve women's health best. And so those are really the three areas where you can connect. And I would love to connect with anyone and kind of hear your story and see how I can be a support in any way if it's something that you're looking for.
Yes, yes, please. We'll have all her information in the show notes, so make sure that you connect with her. Erin, thank you for being here.
Oh, Tiffany, thank you for having me. This is awesome. So
Yes,
grateful.
it's so much fun. So much fun. All right, everybody, thank you for listening in to the Breaking Up with Burnout podcast, and we will see you next